What's up, bikers? Welcome to episode 192 of the Biker Bar podcast. Man, I am super stoked to be hitting that 200 mark here soon. I don't know what that means. Maybe I'll just make an excuse to celebrate or something like that. In the meantime, let's talk about this episode. We're gonna have RecPak on, which is a company that is veteran based, and they're making these little pouches of super lightweight meal replacements. And I'll tell you, it's going to be a fun conversation. I'm looking forward to it. So before I get started, though, let's talk about a couple of the show sponsors. Cali has been a long time sponsor of the show, and honestly, I don't have nothing but good things to say about them. If you are looking for a helmet and you're thinking maybe a Cali sounds good, you can swing by their website and use the code B1Cali30 and save 30%. So the Interceptor I have on the screen right now, this is they've been doing these limited color drops lately, and this thing, for those of you guys that are listening, is it's like a black and white kind of zebra pattern on the shell, and then it's got these really cool like bright ass blue straps. And I think this color palette looks pretty sick. I actually reached out to Cali to see if I could grab one. The Interceptor is their most popular helmet. I don't normally wear one, but this thing looks sick. So normally it's $180. I think with that discount it's like 130. So save quite a bit of money. But honestly, you can use that code on anything on the Cali site. But one of the things that I love about Cali the most is that they have a crash replacement. So if you crash, break your helmet, you send it back to them and they'll send you a new one. So most companies, I actually don't know of any other company that does that. Some of them might have a discount, but they're not going to send you a free helmet. So check them out. Aside from that, Tasco MTB, you can check them out at Tasco Stoke. It is hot still in Northern California, and the Phantom line of shorts and gloves is my favorite. This bright blue color that they sell, what do they call it? Kryptonite? Dude, I really like it a lot. So swing by their site, use code BIKER, save some money, and so show them that you're supporting me and you're supporting the Stoke. So tascostoke.com, check them out. On top of that, RE Bikes just dropped their new road bike called the Bonneville. And the thing's pretty dope looking. It's got a sweet like teal and white color palette that looks rad, but the gray one, there's like a gray on gray, like a dark gray on light gray. They both look pretty clean. So if you're looking for something to maybe use on your rest days, or to keep up with the guys that are faster than you, or I don't know, there's plenty of reasons. Maybe you want to commute, but you want to do it faster and with a little bit of pizzazz, check out the Bonneville on rebikes.com. So anyways, let's go ahead and bring Deed on and let's talk about RecPak. How's it going, man?
It's good. I'm honored to help you make 200, man. Congratulations.
Right? Yeah, honestly, I didn't know where this podcast was going when I started. All I really wanted to do was make a podcast that was something that I wanted to listen to, because I couldn't find one on bikes and stuff like that was like what I wanted to hear. So apparently here we are, man.
Here we are.
What's RecPak for people that don't know?
Yeah, so RecPak is a nutritionally complete instant meal for all kinds of outdoor adventures and professionals that saves you space, weight, and time when you're in outdoor, really remote environments. So I was in the military. That's how I originally got the idea. And I worked with a couple top endurance sports nutritionists to design the mixture. So it's essentially it's 700 calories, so a full meal that is a powder. So it saves you space and weight, and it's contained in a flexible pouch. And so you could fit, a couple in your feed bag, and it just provides complete nutrition. All you need to do is add water.
Right on, man. So your buddy got like the good MRE, and you were like, I'm fucking over this shit. So
right, yes, it was born out of anger and spite, which is the necessity of invention.
Right. So honestly, like how did the idea, like what was that moment? How did it come to fruition?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, when you're in the backcountry or on field ups or wherever you are, you often just have two nutritional options. You've got MREs or freeze dried meals, which you have to add water and they take like 20 minutes to prepare. Or you've got snacks, pogey bait. If I saw that you were a former grunt, so you
Yeah.
know that term. Which are super convenient, but they're mostly just sugary carbs. So it was around the time that there was these other meal replacements that just started to come out. If you've heard of like Soylent and Huel, which they were all for, they were really marketing towards these software engineers who just didn't feel like eating and wanted to sit in front of a screen for
Right.
the entire day, 20 hours a day, and just wanted to drink their sustenance that way. And I thought, well, the real value of this whole powdered meal replacement concept is less for those guys. It's for me, who I'm out here in the field, just you know hungry for more complete nutrition. So
Yeah.
that was the original inspiration. And
You
then
know, I
oh, go ahead.
I I when I first heard it, like in my mind, there was a time way back when I was a young lad and I got my tongue pierced, right? Because that was like the cool fucking thing to do. And and at the time it was like, oh well, your tongue's gonna swell up and you can't eat. So I went out and I bought a bunch of protein and I was like, I'm just gonna drink protein shakes for like 3 days until this like chills out, right? And I was, even though I was like taking in a boatload of protein, I was still hungry as hell the whole time, right? It didn't really like totally work, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was like a little skeptical of your product. And I normally fast in the mornings now, so like the day that I tried it, I didn't eat until like 1:30, which normally I eat at like noon. And I went out at right and I was like hungry. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this a shot. So I did the deal, filled it up with water, shook it, set on the bag to let it kind of sit to thicken up or something like that. And I was like, all right. And right out the gate, my first impression was like, wow, it's like a lot thicker than what I expected. And then secondly, I went on a 30-mile ride and I finished that ride and I didn't come home like I fully expected to be like hungry again. And I wasn't. So like it honestly is like the idea of the meal replacement, like there's obviously a lot more going on there than just adding a shitload of protein, you know?
Totally. Well, and I'm really appreciative that it worked out for you. Yeah, it's I love food. I
Yeah.
cannot stand drinking calories if I don't have to. And so I would just never do that, at least willingly, unless I'm just like, really out there. But I think that
Yeah.
the beauty of this concept is, yeah, when you are out there and you don't have the time to sit and prepare a meal, and getting 700 calories can feel like a gut bomb.
Yeah.
It being in liquid form is really perfect.
Yeah, it didn't feel that way to me at all either. Like I wasn't overly full. It was like I mean, it was I was really like impressed by the taste and the consistency. I really didn't expect the consistency to be as thick as it was, which made it like not feel like, I mean, I drink a lot of protein shakes, and it's really easy for them just to taste like watery.
Yeah.
And so like it almost tasted like, and I'm trying to give a little explanation for people that are listening as well. Like I had the chai one, I think is what it was called.
Oh yeah.
Vanilla chai, yeah. And it kind of almost had like a watered down like oatmeal-y kind of taste to it. Is there like actual oats in it or something like that? Or
Well, our most prominent ingredient is whole oat flour. So if I was just to not add any flavoring, it would just taste like an oatmeal cookie.
oh,
So
interesting.
there's a world out there where I just do original and it just tastes like, yeah, it's just oatmeal flavored essentially.
Right. Right. So you guys have a bunch of flavors. What are the flavors?
Chocolate, vanilla chai, and coffee, which we are doing a complete revamp of our coffee flavor. But the benefit of coffee is you get 150 milligrams of caffeine. So,
Oh, really? So it's a little punch there then too.
yeah, definitely.
That's rad.
Yeah.
So, how did you go about, like, initially you're having this idea of like, hey, I want to do this thing, right? I mean, it's one thing to come up with the idea versus like executing. So, like, what was your first step? Just like go home, start looking shit up on the internet, or?
Yeah, and I'm sure you know, because it's one thing, like everybody has an idea, but it's
Right.
99% is the actual execution, which is, it's like you have, like, the original concept might take or it might be instantaneous, that
Right.
that thing, inspiration, but then you just spend the next X number of years of your life just like in the details. So yeah, it was a really interesting experience because like there's this whole concept in startups of going from 0 to 1, as in there was nothing before, and then just the process of creating even one is, for us it took years of product development. And I to start off, I did a bunch of research. I didn't obviously I was healthy and I did a bunch of exercise, especially for my job, but I wasn't like a super hardo for nutrition or anything.
Right.
But,
Right.
so I had to get really schooled up and just read as much as I could about endurance, nutrition, outdoor requirements. And then that allowed me to talk intelligently with the sports nutritionists who I worked with to design the formulation. And then the packaging itself is a custom design. I was kind of surprised because you see pouches more and more these days, like for kids' drinks and rice and applesauce stuff.
Yeah, and I mean the pouch looks exactly like the type of bag that would come with like a water purification system. Like,
yeah, I get asked about that actually.
People
hook up their filter.
So this ended up being a pain in the ass to come up with.
Years of being a pain in the ass, man. I ended up, just I brought out a packaging engineer. We designed the thing from scratch. And yeah, it just and then COVID hit, and then so I had to take a breather for that. But it took a couple of years just to get the formulation right, and then to work with a food scientist, because it's one thing to say these are all the ingredients and this is the nutritional profile that we want to hit, but then you have to say, okay, based off of what your requirements are, these are the types of ingredients, these are the physical properties to make it soluble in water, all sorts of things that when I first started, I just never even considered.
Right.
And then it was just getting deep into production processes and working with the manufacturer on, there was just like countless things that I just never really considered. Delays, all the supply chain stuff with COVID hit us. And then we did a Kickstarter campaign, which was successful, but that was a nightmare. And I don't think I would ever do that again. But one thing that it did do is it was just a forcing function for like, okay, I'm telling randos across the internet that we are doing this, and they have purchased it, so we are going to do this.
Yeah, now we're really doing it.
Yeah.
So to take a couple steps back, I mean, you hit a lot of things right there. How did you decide on like the nutritional value of like what to put in this? So, I mean, anybody that, knows a little bit about nutrition, I mean, you could have 700 calories of freaking Skittles versus 700 calories of something else. And they're definitely going to do very different things for you. And I think what you mentioned there about wanting to try to keep it water soluble and stuff like that, as well as like, so what is it like when you were approaching the nutritionist that you worked with, like, were you like, what was your like kind of like goal that you were trying to hit with them. You're
Mhm.
like, hey, I want somebody that's out like busting their ass to be able to get good calories, or like what, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. So our sports nutritionist, he had done a bunch of work with military special operations. He was the dietitian for the Steelers, and he just done a bunch of work in endurance sports. It was him and another guy who also had quite a bit of experience. But I essentially told them I was just came out of the military. I want to create a product for somebody that is going out on multi-day type excursions and activities that is going to be burning 4,000 to 6,000 calories at a time. And this is the goal is not to completely replace all of your nutrition so that you just spend the next week drinking RecPak, although I guess you certainly could. I actually have done that for like 3 to 4 days.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, I guess as a side note, when I first before I launched we actually launched the brand, but after I had like a finished prototype, I did this 2-week solo trip to New Zealand where I was going all around the South Island. And they have these great hikes. They're literally called like the Great Walks. And so there was this super epic one over, I think it was 3 to 4 days. And I guess this is pretty bold at the time, but I literally packed nothing but RecPak. And so
like,
I can tell you, I can attest that it works. I mean, again, I don't like drinking calories for all of my meals.
right.
And so, just kind of sloshing around with after like day 3. But it worked and it was great.
How many were you drinking a day?
I think like 5.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking about that while I was doing that ride after I drank yours, and I was like, okay, well, like if I was going out like on a bike packing trip or something like that, and I was just going to take these, and like how many would I actually need to be drinking during a day? And then if I was like planning like there's this ride around Tahoe that my one buddy is trying to talk me into doing, and like some of the meals you can catch like in town, like you're like popping in through another spot where you can like go to a restaurant or something like that. And I was like, man. So it was just like was questioning that, but that makes sense. 5, because that's like 3,500 calories, something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, back to the requirements. I mean, as you said, I'm not looking. I don't think RecPak is, or I didn't design it to replace everything, right? There's also at the end of at the beginning in the morning when you're by a campfire, or maybe like at the end of the evening after a long day, like you don't, or dude, if you're stopping by and just hit a restaurant or something, like those are all very enjoyable experiences that I wouldn't want to take away. And similarly, there are times in which you just need a quick source of calories and you just break out like a goo or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the overall requirements were for somebody that needed to really prioritize space and weight, and they did not have the time to stop. How can we provide them the most holistic nutrition, as well as just like a very good source of high source of calories?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we just got really into the weeds of like designing every ounce. Because to your point, so each pack, including the packaging, weighs 6.6 ounces. So, and if you like, and we consider like I call it ultralight, and sometimes people will say, well, that's not really like ultralight if it's I could eat this other thing that's 200 calories, per however many grams, and I'm like, yeah, like you could just have a Snickers bar and like have denser calories, but it is the quality of the calories that you are getting with per ounce, essentially.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the rough
So did you guys decide to go like super high with things like potassium or sodium just because of thinking the person
Yeah,
would be like sweating their ass off, or like electrolytes or BCAs or something like that?
totally. So yeah, it's so at a high level, each pack contains 700 calories, and that was right. That number was actually chosen because it was on the higher end of what like a full meal would be. So most freeze dried meals, like they're around like 5 to 700 calories, 5 to 800, we'll say. As well as there's limitations for the size of the packaging, so you don't want this thing to be so big that you couldn't fit it in your pocket. The macronutritional ratio is 50% carbs, 25% proteins, and 25% fats. So, and then within each, it's a mix of simple and complex carbs. We use 3 different protein sources: whey, casein, and collagen, and then coconut oil and sunflower oil for fat sources. So you're getting a very well-rounded nutrition. And then our micronutrients, we aim to provide with each pack about 25% of each of your daily value of each. Some are higher, some are lower. But yeah, the idea being that you essentially are going to have everything and just not need to worry about meal prep.
So when you're saying 25% each, you're talking about like all the daily.
Oh, I'm sorry, 25% of your daily value.
Yeah. So like for people that are, if you're looking at like a 2,000 calorie diet on like nutritional facts, and there's always like, all these vitamins and potassium and calcium and yada, yada, yada that's listed there. Basically, he's saying that number would be 25% for all of those things.
Yeah. So it's considered a good or an excellent source of each micronutrient. So
that's interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting. Why 25%? Why'd you shoot for that?
The rough thinking was that when combined with either 1 or 2 meals, so at the beginning or at the end of the evening, plus some snacks, you were probably going to have like anywhere from like 2 to 4 RecPaks for like a full day. Yeah. And so it could either completely fulfill your micronutritional requirements, or it could at least like really augment it.
Yeah. And I saw the protein counts like right below that 50 gram mark, which is like, if I remember, it was like 40 something.
Yeah, each is either 42 or 43 grams of protein.
Right. And my understanding is, I could be wrong. It's one of those things that you hear and you just take for fact forever. But I had always heard that like your body can't take in more than 50 grams of protein at a time. Something like that.
There's a limit to there's an hourly limit to the number of calories that you can consume, as well as the amount of protein, which is why we've got a resealable spout. So the idea being that you can drink it on the move.
Got it. Yeah, and that protein being that high though, I think is what I was getting at too, is like that's super satiating. So it definitely like when I drank the one that I drank, I went from like being like stupid hungry, because usually by the time I'm coming off my fast, like I'm ready to like freaking eat, and it definitely like instantly like satiated me. Like I didn't, within minutes, like I was not feeling like oh man, I was like, I basically drank the thing and got on the bike and wasn't hungry, which was like I said, I really just I can't stress it enough to the people that are listening, like how surprised I was by like how effective it was. Like it really, like, I mean, I could go inside and make a protein shake that has 50 grams of protein in it, and I don't think I would have felt the same way, by a long shot,
Yeah, I appreciate that. I always thought, before I started the company, I was like, this is such a simple concept. It's kind of surprising that there's not something else out there. It's I haven't seen anything that's remotely similar.
Yeah, I think that I mean, there's so many applications for it. Like for me, like the way that I had thought about it, there's plenty of times where I'm like, I don't like to eat when I'm out riding like that much, you know, like some guys can bring sandwiches and stuff like that with them. And for me, like it being a liquid is what I think is like really key
Hmm.
because I like my appetite gets like curbed when I'm active, you know? So like to just stop on the top of some freaking climb and be like, okay, I'm going to eat 700 calories of something, like it just sounds painful to me. But to be able to like just mix this up, hang out and smash a drink is it seems really good to me. And then the fact that it is, in my eyes, it's super small. Like I can put this in I could probably carry 2 of these in my hip pack that really doesn't have any extra room in it when it's full of water, and it would still be like it would fit in there no problem, you know. So I could go on an all day long thing and not have to carry much and like finish that ride. Because usually what happens for me on big rides like that, like big pushes, is I usually under eat, and then you start dealing with problems at the end of the ride, right? You start cramping or like bonking or whatever, you know. And like you said, you can take like goos and stuff like that. Those work for the energy, but they don't really work for like really replacing the like what you're burning out of your body while you're doing that, you know.
Yeah, not great for recovery because there's no protein. And then, yeah, it is kind of surprising that there's not some sort of like any other, I don't know what you'd say, like liquid meals out there because being a liquid inherently, like one, I mean, it's common sense, you're hydrating as well as you're fueling, but you also get the nutrition much more quickly and you're consuming while you're consuming your calories, it doesn't feel like that gut bomb.
Yeah, I think there's some companies that do something similar. Like I had the guy on from scratch,
Oh
and they
yeah,
have
scratch is great.
something. It's not like meal replacement though, but they definitely have something that's like a lot more calorically rich,
Hmm.
but not on the same level as this. I earlier you were saying that you ran into a lot of problems with the bag, so um I kind of breezed over it earlier, but basically, like this bag is like that hard plastic kind of bag, and it's got a. If anybody's ever bought like a water filter that you can use out on the trail, and they come with these like super like thick bags with the cap on the top, that's basically what it looks like. And you just pull the cap open, and then you fill in the empty space inside of the bag with water, and then you just shake it up, and then wait a couple minutes and drink it. And so I'm assuming when you first started, you wanted something that you'd be able to just like pour some water in and shake it up. That
Hmm.
seems like a simple task. So I'm assuming what was the problem? Just like trying to keep it like not being like poked into or like breaking whenever you squeezed it or what?
Well, actually, I mean, I talked to the packaging engineer. And I said this thing needs to essentially be designed like a tank because of where it's going to be, just to withstand pokes and spills, all sorts of stuff. But it's more just the difficulty was just the entire process, and that when you are designing something like so if you're maybe I'm just like nerding out on the startup stuff a bit too much, but
No, go
if
for it,
you're
man.
designing like if you were designing an app and there's something wrong with the app and you're a software engineer, you can just go in and just update the code and then uh, push it, and then there could be like a million people who then just get the update, and then it's like
Right.
when you design a physical object, it's actually terrifying because like we originally I wanted this thing that was like more like form fitting and kind of looked like a water bottle type thing. And then I realized after we got back the prototypes, and this was like months of work, that it just didn't hold enough water. And so we
Yeah.
decided to do like a whole redesign. And it's the kind of thing where like if you we needed to make it big enough to hold the powder and the liquid, but small enough. I wanted it to be put at least in like a cargo pocket. And so millimeters mattered, but it was the kind of thing where it's not like we're a big company with like a whole team that knows how to do this stuff. It was just me, and I was learning how to, manipulate these CAD programs. And so every time that I sent a new drawing, it was like everything on there needed to be perfect. And for an amateur like myself, I was just, you inherently miss stuff.
Right.
So that was just, it was an amazing learning experience, but it's especially terrifying because you're like, you have these prototypes and they come back and they're blank, like they don't have the graphic design on them, and you're like, okay, like we're ready for production. Now I'm going to spend tens of thousands of dollars on like I think our first run was 20,000 units,
Right.
pouches. That is terrifying because you've never created anything like that before. And like,
Yeah.
what if I missed like the K in RecPak or something somewhere? Like
Right.
that's going to be on there for a very long time until I
Right.
can sell through all that stuff. And so it's just that kind of stress as
Yeah.
when you're first starting out and you're
Yeah, no, that's
yourself.
definitely a thing. And I mean, I think the other end of it too is like you're also trying to like make something that's cost effective too. It's like, yeah, you can make that bag like sick as hell, but then it'd cost like $1 billion, right? Like,
Oh yeah, I mean the thing is, and this is why it's so hard for smaller companies, and uh, it's very intuitive. But you can, if you have the money, you can essentially just do whatever you want. You can hire experts, and you could just, if cost is no object, then yeah, you're going to get the most perfect thing ever. But of course, you don't have that luxury. So hence, that's why I
yeah.
was like learning how to do CAD and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had a few things made overseas for my channel, and it was definitely intimidating just the way that you said. And what I learned through that process as well is like those people don't tell you when there's a mistake. Like you get the item and you're like, oh shit, this was like off center by like 2 millimeters, and nobody was like, hey, by the way, before we run this, it's fucked up. Like they're like, oh yeah, no, you just bought those, thank you,
Yeah.
and if you want it fixed, you can fix it and we'll sell you some more.
Yeah, nobody tells you that there's going to be a mistake, by the way, in every
Yeah.
single area. Like we actually just got through our upcoming production batch, and I was dealing with logistics, and it was just like absolutely came down to the wire. And it was like, came up down to like me just calling the logistics hub, being like, where the fuck are my pallets? And
Right.
of course they've been there for probably like 6 hours, but they're like, oh, like, yeah, they just came in. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's just like the plight of the entrepreneurs. Like you have to do everything yourself. It is exhausting and stressful all the time,
Yeah.
as I'm sure you
So
know.
it's not just you, right? There's a couple of people in the team.
Well, yeah. So there's, on the technical side, I've got a food scientist, as well as a packaging engineer, and then there's Joy, who you met at Sea Otter. She's awesome. We met. I was doing this glacier mountaineering course last year, and she's actually my instructor.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that was a fun little.
Her interaction with me was so genuine,
Oh,
and
she's
it
the most
was,
genuine person around. Yeah.
oh man, it was honestly like I walked by the tent and I looked at like the product and like from afar, you know what I mean? And it just like whatever was going on in my mind was like, I'm not stopping, you know. And she walked up to me and she says, because I'm wearing a media badge, and she's like, look, I'm sorry to bother you. I really don't want to bother you, but I told myself that everybody I see with this media badge, I'm going to go up and talk to, and we're just trying to kick this company off. And I just really want, it to work. And, you could just see in her like eyes, like how honest and like from her heart that like moment was. And there was no way that I couldn't sit and listen to what she had to say. And then when she started talking about the product, then it was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm interested. Yeah, this would be like a fun conversation on my podcast.
Yeah.
But honestly, I would 100% walk by if it wouldn't have been for her. So she's definitely a good add to the team.
Yeah. Joy is amazing. And then I always, long before I started this, I always try to support small businesses. But you really realize when you're doing it, as I'm sure, I don't know if you connect with other podcast hosts, you're kind of like this little tribe that's all in it together, and you share war stories and you try and help each other out. So that's been very cool and unexpected that I had not expected that as part of this whole journey.
Yeah. So I meant to say it earlier, but thanks for your service. What'd you do when you were in?
I was in the Marine Corps, so I was an officer, and I did both infantry and intelligence.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, I saw. Weren't you in the Army?
Yeah, I was in the Army. I was in the infantry. I actually had the military intelligence as a job offered to me whenever I first took my ASVAB, because I like basically I like scored as high as you could score for any job in the Army, right? So they're like at MEPS and they're like, okay, well, here's this job, like this is like MI, being a linguist or some shit like that. And they're like, this is a great job. And I was like, no. And they're like, what do you mean no? And I was like, no, I want to be in the infantry. And they were like, the guy, I remember him pulling me to the side and he's like, look, dude, this is a really good job. Like, are you sure you don't want this? And I was like, yeah, no. Like, I actually left. I was like, look, if you guys can't get me infantry, and like at the time they had a guarantee of like where you could go, so I wanted to be in Europe. I was like, I'm not signing. And sure as shit, man, next day they called me up. They're like, you know what? We got a spot for you.
They always find a spot. There's always something out there that they can. Did you end up going to Europe?
Yeah, I was. I was. That was where I was stationed pretty much the whole time I was in. And then I was in a NATO unit for most of the time. So it was like going all over a bunch of like different operations or training exercises and stuff like that within NATO. So that was pretty cool. And then I volunteered to be a door gunner, which in proper military fashion, anytime you volunteer for something that sounds cool, it's never going to be that. And so instead I was down in Bosnia humping around, freaking a bunch of weight and doing QRF stuff, and did that for a while, and then got out and tried to be a rock star. And apparently now I'm an IT guy that does podcasts and rides mountain bikes. So
that was pretty sweet to me. Wait, let's go back for a minute. What about the rock star?
Yeah, man, just didn't play out, man.
What do you play?
I play guitar and I could sing, but when I got out, I really was like, okay, I want to work in the music industry. So I was like, I was smart enough to know like the chance of like having a band and getting signed and like being famous was probably low. So I was going to school for studio recording to like at least work in like the music industry. And long story short, like I got offered a job that was at a really awesome studio, but it was making less money than I made at Home Depot, which was my like college job. And I was like, you know what? I think I need to reevaluate. And I just started taking computer classes because I thought they were fun. And I was just working on my regular like bachelor's degree and trying to figure out what I was going to do. And somehow or another, I ended up doing IT. So
do you enjoy it?
Yeah, man. It's been super fun. I'm like an ADHD kind of guy. So it's good to have something that's consistently like constantly changing. So it keeps my attention. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. But, I think everything in life is like, at least for me, it's always been like, just chase whatever I'm most interested in at the time and you'll be successful. And like, whether it was like the music industry thing, like at the time, like I got myself to a spot where I would have been working at a major studio, and it was just because like I was doing what I was most passionate about, and I think that the same thing happened with IT. Like I moved well through that. And I think that with my YouTube stuff, I feel like there's a lot of guys out there that can just, decide they want to try to do it. But like to be successful, I think you have to have that passion. And I think it's just like any like small business, like what you're doing. Like if you're not passionate about what you're trying to do, you're not going to be successful. No. Like you have to have passion for it, because otherwise every time it sucks, you're going to be like, this is dumb. I'm not
Oh,
doing
yeah. The minute
this.
it gets hard, I mean, I have done things in my life where I was like, this is not my thing, but this is like the thing, the quote thing to do.
Right.
And yeah, you just get super burnt out because, I mean, anything that you do, ideally you want to do well, and you can't do something well unless you put a ton of, you just grind at it, and that just
Yeah.
requires interest and passion. So I definitely feel that.
So you were doing that mountaineering class. What was the reason for that? Do you have like a day job that you do still, or you're doing some?
Yeah, well, I actually, yes, I do. And that's a whole other conversation, is like how to balance this with balance RecPak with a day job. Yeah, I actually work with drones. So it's something completely separate. But yeah, I took a couple weeks off. I mean, generally I'll try and do every quarter, because it's very difficult for me just to take time off, especially for like multi-day type stuff where I just can't be near a computer. And so when I do get off the grid, it needs to be just like completely, and I need it planned well in advance and all of that. So I try and do something big at least once a quarter. And yeah, I was like, I'd done some mountaineering stuff before, but not at I guess that level. And so
Mhm.
yeah, it was this awesome Knowles Glacier mountaineering course up in Alaska. And yeah, as fate would have it, she subbed in for an instructor that got sick out there. And yeah, it was really, really incredible experience. I mean, I've been to many different remote and interesting environments across the world, but that was definitely something that was just very unique.
Yeah, yeah. So where were you guys at? Like up like by like Denali or something like that, or?
In the Chugach, which was God, how do we get there? It was like we drove. It's like a couple hours drive from Anchorage, and then you take a plane, like a bush plane, out to
Right.
the site and set up and all of that. So
Wow. That's
yeah,
crazy.
it was. It's interesting in that, because I've spent a lot of time in many different deserts, and you I haven't had this phenomenon as strongly as in the mountains, but I feel like when you're in this very monochromatic environment, you sort of get used to it, and it feels like you're on this alien landscape. And then once you get out, just like the colors come back in, and you're like noticing like the trees and the flowers and all of that. It's like this really
Yeah.
interesting experience.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was up in the Arctic Circle, and we would do cold weather training up there every year with the unit
Mm.
that I was in, and I can relate to that definitely. Like because you're pretty much just seeing white. That's it
Yeah,
all the time. You know, like
yeah. Different shades of white, different shades of
yeah,
blue,
yeah,
different shades of gray for the rock, and that's about
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. That's interesting. It's definitely an interesting perspective. So she's doing this class, and you just started telling her about what you were doing for a job or for this business, and she was just interested, or?
Yeah, and then I sent her and a couple of the other instructors some. I was like, hey, if you guys are for your next climb, just test it out. Let me know how it is, and if you like it, just maybe send a couple photos. And then yeah, she loved it. She saw I think she saw the potential in it. And then yeah, I guess I've worked with many different people at this point, and what I have learned is expertise in any one area is one thing. It's a nice to have. I mean, it's a bit different if you're like, I don't know, software engineering or something, like what you
Yeah,
do for like to being a doctor. Like you need a very specific skill set. You need to
right,
be real good at that thing.
right,
But,
right.
yeah, but if it's like marketing or I don't know, operations or something,
Mhm.
you can learn all that on the fly. It's how passionate are you? How good? How
Yeah,
hard of a worker and diligent are you? And yeah, that's pretty much what I look for at this point.
yeah.
and she had all those things.
Yeah, your ability to learn. I know whenever I was managing, that's what I would look for more than I would look for somebody with experience. I would look for somebody that could like troubleshoot a problem and have like the wherewithal to like run through all of these scenarios or possibilities or use the resources that they had more than just somebody that has experience, because it doesn't always necessarily, just because you've had experience doesn't necessarily mean that you have that other skill set, you know, and that other skill set in my mind is like 9 times out of 10 more valuable, because you can teach somebody the things, you know. So I think like what you were saying earlier, like it made me think of the like the fake it till you make it kind of like saying, like that comes from, you know, just having that tenacity of figuring things out, and you'll make it, you know. And at the beginning you're like, yeah, I do marketing. And then after a while you're like, I do marketing, you know.
Yeah, I am actually good at this now.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like how we were talking about earlier, 99% of any one thing is execution. And then I would say, I don't know what that ratio is, but yeah, it is all just on the fly, just learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was one of the best pieces of advice that I got whenever I first started my YouTube channel. Was like I was watching somebody's video, and he's like, the number one thing that I can tell you to start your YouTube channel is to actually just start it. Because and there's so many people, they'll just sit around and same thing with the business or any idea. It's like you can sit around and think something till you die, you know. Like you actually just have to start making mistakes until you can like work towards something, you know. And for me, I'm very much a perfectionist, so that was really difficult for me to like be like, no, I know I'm going to start and this is not going to be what I want. And I just actually have to accept that and then like start making the mistakes. And then you're like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing, you know?
I don't know if you had this experience, but I remember when we first launched our Kickstarter, so we were just like opening RecPak up, introducing it to the world. Now, of course, like when you're in the middle of it, you think that people actually, that somebody out there cares, and they care a lot less than you think. You know, the people care a lot less than you think that they do. But when you're in the middle of it, you absolutely think that you're so self-conscious and you want everything to be perfect. I don't know if you had that experience when you first uploaded.
I think you're saying that exactly in different words than what I said. The thing that I always have to remember, like right now when I make videos, I want that video to be so dialed, right? And in my mind, I'm like, oh, the color correction has to be good, and the editing has to be right, and the volume has to be right, and all these things that I know now to do that I like put into my production, right? But when I first started, I didn't know any of that shit, and people still hit subscribe.
Yeah,
you know, so it's just like what you said. Like at the end of the day, man, people just want something that's like has some value to them. So like in the opportunity of RecPak, like the value is like I want something light that's going to give me nutrients. And if the bag doesn't look good and it's just like silver with some sticker on it, you know, like they're like, fuck it, you know, this is doing what I wanted to do. I don't care. And if it gets better, they'll pick it up and be like, oh, this looks cooler now, you know. But it really isn't as important probably as like we would think when you're in the trenches, you know.
Right. I think the core principle is that you have to start with something that is useful or interesting. And if you have that core thing, even if it's a very unformed idea, the rest of it will come. But you have to start with that one thing.
Yeah. So you said that there was a bunch of issues with the Kickstarter. So because in my mind, like, and I've never done a Kickstarter, and I would imagine that everybody's view of Kickstarter is pretty similar to start. Is like, oh yeah, just put this thing up there and all these people just start giving you money. And then next thing you know, you're ready to go.
Yeah. Well, there's no free money in this world. I don't know if, but yeah, it was, I think that Kickstarter is great if you have like a video game or I don't know, a book or something. There's like certain things that or like a gadget. There's certain things that kind of are just better for virality, and that the Kickstarter audience wants to see. But we have a pretty specific audience, these kind of like outdoor and endurance type
niche of
athletes.
people.
Yeah, and those folks are not really on Kickstarter. So,
Right.
so we had to you no matter what you're doing, you still have to bring a huge chunk of the audience to Kickstarter in the first place.
So you have to
So
do a lot of marketing to actually make your Kickstarter work.
yeah, we had to do all of that, and again, we ended up hitting our goal, and again, it was a forcing function. So I'm not gonna. I don't regret it, and I'm not going to hate on the platform because I think it's great for other things. But very few people go to Kickstarter for a food,
Right.
I guess
Right. They're looking for like some kind of electronic doodad that like makes their life better somehow.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Exactly. Yeah. So all the marketing stuff, I reflected on later that I did for Kickstarter. I was like, I could have just done that for a regular launch. It was the exact same thing. Probably would have been maybe a bit more successful. So, but you know what? We're here today, and it was a wild experience. And as long as you get a story out of it, and you're not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Permanently.
I used to listen to this podcast that was, I think it was called How Things Are Made. No, that wasn't it. It was How I Made This. That's what it was.
Oh, How I Built This? Yeah.
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 And have you listened to that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so like for those of you that haven't, basically the deal is like the guy would interview people that started these companies, and they were like all major companies now, like Dell or Whole Foods or something like that. But it would be really interesting to hear them from like, yeah, when we were in the garage doing this, this is how we did it, and it's very similar. Like after you listen to so many of them, a lot of it's very similar though, and it's just like this like grassroots kind of grind at the beginning, no matter what. It's not, it doesn't come easy. I think if it did, obviously everybody would do it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so much of life is pattern matching. And I think in any field, there's a pattern of how things are done. And I think for the entrepreneur, it is just like struggle is a natural part of that. And maybe there are brands out there, like, I don't know, if you get a celebrity early and then you just go viral and you just get all these orders and then life is easy street after that. Maybe that's a very rare edge case, but I think for the rest of the 99.9%, it's just like this daily struggle where you have to do everything yourself and you're always learning and you're making a ton of mistakes. But I think ultimately, if you have something at your core, like that core idea that we talked about, and you really believe in your product, then you just have to keep on going and keep pushing. And I have to think that, again, if people love what you're making, and as long as you don't run out of money or for other reasons can't keep going, like eventually I think something will happen.
So how do people get your product right now? Is it all just through direct to consumer through your website?
Through our website, on Amazon. We're in a couple third-party e-commerce platforms like Garage Grown Gear, which specializes in ultralight gear. They've been awesome. And then we are expanding our brick and mortar. We're mostly in independent stores. So we're in, I think, close to 20 stores across 6 states, mostly in the West.
Yeah. So is that your goal? Would you like to get in more retail, or would you like to grow more like direct to consumer, or like what is it? What's the direction that you guys are pushing?
Yeah, well, both. Obviously we want to at some point get into REI and Bass Pro Shops, and
right.
Really
that's the big goal.
Well, the big goal actually is, I think that there's so many of our customers are military and search and rescue and wildland
Mhm.
firefighting. And obviously the idea was conceived when I was in. And so I think it would be really cool to be able to give back to those communities in a more
Mhm.
meaningful way. So that's very long term. We'll see how that goes. But
Mhm.
the I guess the more immediate goal is just continuing to expand and get our name out there. I mean, we're still, as I said, super small, just literally like three of us more full
Yeah.
time on the team. But I think bigger retail, expand more into those independent stores, to really just kind of get our name out there and our core community.
So you get the bags from one place. Do you guys have to fill that then yourselves, or do you have some kind of like company that's doing that, or how does the product end up ready to like go out the door?
Yeah. So although I handle all of our logistics out of my guest bedroom and my office, you can actually see one of our boxes that's destined for Amazon in the background. That is all handled. There's a manufacturer in Wisconsin. I'm actually going out there on Monday to oversee our next production batch. So
Uh-huh.
all the ingredients get sent to them, and then they all mix it together and then fill the pouches.
All right on. And
Yeah.
then at that point, you'll have a bunch of like ready to go packaging for wherever you guys are shipping for your site, and then you send that same thing to Amazon or whatever so that they fulfill for you.
Yep. Yeah.
Got
Exactly.
it. Got it.
Yeah.
Then what are you guys doing as far as like, are you working on developing anything else like a newer flavors or like some different?
Yeah. I think the next. I mean, right now we're still trying to stabilize what we do have, our processes, manufacturing processes, and then just grow what we do have. Just because I think a risk to brands that try and expand their product offerings too early is they just get too their focus gets diluted, and so I want to make sure that we really have as good a core product as we can. But I would like to do another flavor. Taking suggestions, I'm thinking a fruity type flavor. I don't know, strawberry banana or something like that
Mhm.
for those fruit lovers out there.
Yeah.
And then plant-based protein, because certainly there's quite a few folks um, that would really want that. And then I think there's some really cool ideas down the road, either like a smaller, more snack version, or I think customized nutrition is already developing it really into something. So maybe you have different packs for different activity types or different phases of your activity.
Like a higher caloric count or something like that. Or I like
Yeah,
the idea that like the half size bag too. That would make a lot of sense where you could just take maybe two of them that are half size, and then that way you're not having to like mix the whole thing up. So you can do
mhm,
like part of it one spot and part of it at another spot, and kind
right.
of not, not be carrying the water that way. But yeah, that's interesting. That's definitely interesting. And then the perfect world of what you said earlier, you could just do the no flavor and just get the oatmeal, right?
Yeah, for all those original RecPak lovers out there.
So that was the original flavor was no flavor.
No, it's a happy accident that just without flavoring, because the oat flour is very
Yeah.
tasty. It just tastes like an oatmeal cookie.
So you have that flavor still or no?
No, I mean, if somebody really wanted it, I guess I could take from our prototype bin and I could make it for them. But no,
Nice.
it's a very special edition.
Yeah, yeah. Did you guys consider like selling the powder like by itself, like without the bag, or?
Yeah, I think that could certainly be an option in the future. I just didn't want to. I thought so much of the uniqueness was in the pouch, and that you didn't need to worry about bringing in a shaker bottle or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then once things come in a bin, then it just you're kind of another. I mean, there's just so many protein type
Yeah.
shakes, meal replacement
Yeah.
shakes out there. But I mean, that's certainly, it would be really easy to do. I'm sure
Yeah.
at some point we'll offer that.
Right on.
Yeah.
Looking back, like, is there anything in particular that you wish you would have done differently?
Yeah, I mean, how many hours do you have? Every day, or I'll say every week is a new mistake to learn, or a new thing to learn from. Yeah, I mean, it's just in every area, there's just, there's countless mistakes that I've made. But I mean, again, going back to the idea that if you have a core product, then or if you have at your core something that people love, I think that you just need to keep your head down, stay focused, and grind it out, and then ultimately things will happen. So
Yeah.
that was my little PSA for the day. But I'm trying to think, what is like a very big mistake that I've made?
It's all right. Nothing comes to mind.
I'll get back to. I mean,
Yeah.
one time I had all these labels printed, like 20,000 labels. Actually, I talk about the spell check or proof check. And yeah, they were like the number of grams was like off by 5 or something. And my manufacturer pointed out, and I was just like, holy fuck. So there was $5,000 in a week of delayed production because of that one digit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I bet you like painstakingly read everything like 95 times now because of that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I saw on your website that you guys sent a bunch of rec packs to Ukraine and other veteran outdoor events. Like, what's behind that? You guys are just like deciding to like kind of pick some certain charities or something that you're working with, or?
Yeah. So, I mean, I started RecPak always just with the idea that I wanted to make it into something that was ultimately giving back.
Mhm.
I feel like I live life with most everything that I have, so I don't need to, turn this into such a money making endeavor. And I think it's very cool when brands have a strong identity around that. Uh,
Mhm.
and so yeah, we're a member of 1% for the Planet and the Conservation Alliance. So we donate a portion of our annual revenue to those causes. And then we, on a fairly regular basis, partner with outdoor veteran and youth groups. We're not at the point where we're able to make financial contributions, but we do like to support with product
Mhm.
really where we can. And then, yeah, with the Ukraine thing, through my veteran networks, I had, there was a few folks that were really, especially earlier on in the war, they were really committed to helping out first responders, refugees, and soldiers on the front lines.
Uh-huh.
And I saw it both as an opportunity to give back, and then also for just a bit of testing in those very extreme environments.
Right.
And so that was a very interesting experience. Was contacting um, folks that I knew through guys that I knew in the military that were, and they were way forward out in Ukraine, and yeah, just coordinating all the logistics and getting it
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, that's super interesting. It's
Yeah.
definitely I agree with you. There's a lot of, and it seems like that is like a, how do I say this? Like it's like a thing to do with new companies nowadays, is like have some kind of humanitarian aspect to your business, where it's like, was it like I'm gonna say it wrong. I think it was like Tom's shoes. It was like every time you
Mhm.
bought a pair of shoes, they gave you a pair of shoes, and like
Yeah.
there's a guy in the mountain bike space, a company called Trail One, where they have different parts that they sell, and every part that they sell, like $1 of that sale goes to like some trail system somewhere, you
Yeah.
know. And so it's like I think things like that though, like they I don't know, at least for me as a consumer, like that's like, oh, that makes you want to like support that company more for some reason, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's a really interesting question because I think there is this, and I think it's a good thing that brands are at least much more active and consumers are aware of this stuff. But I mean, especially when you're starting out, it's not like unless you do have your entire identity around this social mission, like Tom's shoes, like everything that they do is, as far as I can tell, is like around their mission.
Yeah.
I think it's very difficult to do when especially when you're a smaller brand and you're just like trying to be profitable in the first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Um,
You're like, all right, so let's give this stuff away.
yeah, but I do. Yeah, I always just wanted, at the very least, to be able to give back in a small way. And so, yeah, I don't see it as like, as core to our branding as Tom's. Like, at the end of the day, I see us as like a product focused company that really wants to
Mhm.
create the best product for our users. But I really do love, when we get photos and stuff from different groups that we donated to, and just the feedback there. It's very personally fulfilling.
Mhm. So, how long is it good for, the product?
18 months from production.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, you could. I've got brave buddies who are still drinking from the original batch that was like 3 to 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And you're more than welcome to. It's probably fine. I mean, I'm not going to recommend that from
Right.
like a.
Legally, I'm not. Allegedly, you can do
You're probably there's a disclaimer that
it. Yeah.
don't listen to me, but you're probably more than good. It's just the flavors are not going to be
Right. I would
as
imagine probably the flavor and then the like nutritional values will probably start to drop over time.
yeah. There's just a natural degradation. I mean, we have the vitamin mineral mix.
Yeah.
It's more on the vitamin side, actually. Minerals don't really degrade, but yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. And then how about after you mix it? How long is it good?
Depends on what the ambient temperature is. So I actually have RecPak in my fridge from it's like a week and a half old. And again, I not necessarily a recommendation. I think on the packaging it says like 5 days or something.
Uh-huh.
But so yeah, if you keep it in your fridge or if it's a cold weather environment, I would say 5 days.
Yeah.
Plus, if it is ambient temperature, I think 2 to 3 days. And then if you're in the desert, probably drink it that day.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on. Have you got any I know from doing YouTube I always have some pretty rad comments that come up. Have you got any pretty wild stories of people telling you like this did this while I was using your
Yeah,
product and it saved my life, or
yeah.
some
Well, I guess aside from the battlefields of Ukraine, yeah, we do
yeah.
get it's been to the Himalayas a couple times. It's really been all over the U.S. In some very cool places, all the way from
Yeah.
like military exercises, search and rescue. We supported there was a kayaking duo that and shout out to Chris for this, that they took like I don't know, like $1,000 worth of RecPak over 5 days or something to participate in the Yukon 1000. So it was like this very arduous paddling trip up or race rather up the Yukon. And I don't know if they survived exclusively on RecPak, but I think it was primarily RecPak, and they finished third. So there you have it,
Oh,
everyone.
there you go. It'll
Uh,
make you win races.
yeah, so yeah, no, it's been to some very cool places.
Yeah, that's pretty rad.
Yeah,
That's gonna be pretty fulfilling to see your product doing that.
yeah, and it's actually there's like the really cool stories like that, but then there's also like Gary as an example, and Gary is I think he was 60 years old and he was participating in his first ultra, and he wrote the kindest. It was like a full page thanking us for just helping him along his ultra, and it was like it's those kind of stories, that just really tear me up.
Yeah. Yeah. They definitely make you feel like what you're doing has more purpose than what you
Yeah,
maybe initially thought when you were making the product.
yeah. There are times in which I'm like, "Fuck this! I cannot. I do not want to spend my whole day doing this thing."
Yeah.
And then I read something like that, and I'm like, okay, like this is worth it. We're doing something
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I did a video series about losing weight, and I really just made videos about it because it was what I was doing, and I just thought it would be fun to make a video about it. And I didn't there was like zero part of me that wanted to inspire people. Like that was not like in my forethought when I made the video. My idea was like, oh, this is like what I'm doing. I'm just going to make this video about it. And I've had all these people reach out to me over the years now and like, man, I lost 50 pounds. I lost 100 pounds. I lost all this weight because like you inspired me to go do this thing. And it's unbelievable, and it's like it was 0% of like what I was thinking when I made it. And I think, probably the same thing for you when you were thinking like of creating RecPak. You weren't thinking like, you're going to help Gary finish this ultra and he's going to be super stoked. You know what I mean? And stoked to the point where he's going to write this thing to you. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's definitely, it's interesting how in life things like that pay back in ways that you didn't expect.
Totally. I think, I mean, not to sound cheesy, but that is what it's about. Like, I haven't really reflected on this before, but I mean, and I'm not knocking somebody in who's like a banker or something, but I think there is a distinct difference between when you create something that people personally love and changes their life. Not to say that RecPak, by the way, is, it's not like a
life changing. Yeah.
Life changing. But it is just something very special. Or you help, just people across the country that you never even you've never met and you never even considered, and you help them in their weight loss journey.
Yeah,
it's
definitely it's definitely like an unexpected benefit that ultimately ended up being like more motivating than anything else that I would have like initially been motivated by. Like my initial intentions of making a YouTube channel was like make money and get free bike parts, like that was the initial idea. Right. And today, like those people's comments actually mean more than the other stuff that I thought I wanted,
It's cool.
Really,
it's a reminder of what's really important.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you just want to like leave some, at least for me, like I feel like you want to leave some kind of mark. You know what I mean? Like you want to affect people. You want to like, and I think things like this, where it's like, that's you're definitely affecting people. Like you're changing things. That's interesting. It's really fun, and I think it's really rewarding as well. There's a lot of other things that you can do that you don't get that get that kind of feedback. So, and I'm sure, you get the negative feedback too. Somebody's like, man, your grams were off by 5 with that.
Oh man. So yeah, it's so funny because and now these days I don't give a shit. But when you're first starting out and you just like have zero review or like so few reviews, and then you get some weirdo doing something, it's actually there are folks, of course. I mean, it's we're not perfect, and we're not going to get 100%. So there are going to be folks that just don't like the flavor, that just clumps, but they don't wait a few minutes to let it settle, so it clumps or whatever. And then I get that. You get these total, like, the anonymity of social media, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but like just people who just have nothing to lose, just writing. Like I always find it the most comical, or like we have an ad on Instagram or whatever. It's just like, fuel your adventure, and then there are people that will sit there and they will write, never having tried the product or go to our website or anything, just like a paragraph of shit talking on the ad. It's just like, dude, you literally could just be doing anything else in your life than like responding to a brand's ad on social media. It's just
it's interesting. Funny. It's interesting the things that people decide to spend their time on.
It's kind of crazy if you think about it. Our lives are a very, very finite, and just the sheer amount of time that we spend in front of a screen shit talking on ads or something, whatever, is very funny.
My wife and I were having a conversation similar to that earlier today about some things that were going on online, and it was just like I just was saying to her, it's like, I just don't understand how people have, like, this is what they're fulfilling their day with, like I have so many things that I want to do that like is beneficial to me, or like my family, or my friends, or you know what I mean, like other things that like bring something to my life or the world, and not like I'm gonna sit here and like berate somebody in the comment section of some video that I watched, like it's just like, oh, I didn't like it, I'm done, click and see ya, or whatever.
It is wild. I mean, I guess I'm hopeful that, because I think when something new comes along, you kind of, at least I don't know, I do. I binge it, and then I kind of get over it and I move on. Mm-hmm. And then I'm hoping for humanity, this like internet social media thing is just like, we're in the binging phase, and then we'll look back at in the next generation or two and be like, man, that we were very silly back then. So, we'll use Facebook for, or Instagram to check up, every couple of minutes a day or whatever. We're out doing stuff. We're kind of over that, but that's the idealist in me. I don't know if that's happen.
I think the only way that it goes away is that something else more obnoxious comes out. So
well, we're now trying to figure out TikTok. So I refuse to do that. We've got a wonderful high school intern, and I'm just like, that is your mission. This is your generation. I refuse to even, download the app and let the Chinese check out my phone. So
there you go.
Figure out
everything in your life, right?
Real quick, what did you do to lose weight?
Basically, and this is the shortest version of it, is burn more calories than you eat. And then that's really what it comes down to. I think that everybody has a air quote diet that they can do that's going to work for them, but that diet may not work for anybody else. So for me, I've always found that the way, like, because I've done a bunch of different things, like my entire life has been like a lot of yo-yos as far as weight goes, because it's like when I was young and in the military, my metabolism was screaming and I was doing a lot of activity, right? So for a long period of my life, my like eating habits were eat as much as you fucking possibly want, and it's not going to matter, right? And then it's not until later in my life where it's like, oh, like you're not being as active as you used to be, and you're still eating like that. Guess what? You're going to gain weight, right? And so I've done a bunch of different like things like Atkins, which has now been rebranded to like, I don't know, whatever somebody's calling it today, low carb, or you know what I mean? Like there's a million of them out there. And I found for me, the thing that worked the best would be like counting calories. And whenever you count calories, like you want to like like you have a number of calories that you can eat, right? To like maintain the weight that you're at or to lose weight, right? And it's really up to you if you make that number like work for you or like make that number suck. So let's just say like for me, I weigh right now like 240 pounds. And if I want to lose weight, I should be eating like less than 2,400 calories, right? So let's just say it's like 2,200 calories. Like I could eat 2,200 calories in Skittles. I'm going to be fucking starving all day long, you know,
Yeah.
but those Skittles will taste fucking good, you know? So like what happens whenever you're like trying to count calories and like make it work, you find out that like, hey, I'm not going to eat anything processed because those calories, like there's more calories there than it's like going to make me feel full, you know, so you really just start trying to learn how to eat calories that are going to satiate you or like going to be better for you than other ways. So like, I think the number one way that a lot of people take a lot of calories in is they drink them. I mean, no shade on RecPak, but
Oh no, yeah, none
like,
taken.
like a lot of people are like, you can drink a day's worth of calories in beer real easy, you know, like you can drink a day's worth of calories in like soda or just in like casual drinks that you drink through the day, or you could drink water or like choose like 0-calorie options and not have that problem, you know. So realistically, would it come down like what I've been doing is I make sure that I'm super active, and then I just try to eat like all things that I'm creating and nothing that's coming out of a box. But I do eat like bread, and I do eat like, I put butter on my toast. I don't fucking care about that shit, you know. Some people are like, you have to stop that, and they're, you know, I've got a billion comments of people telling me that I can never drink alcohol. You should quit drinking alcohol. Clearly, you're an alcoholic. And it's like, dude, shut the fuck up, man. Like, check this out. I go out to sushi once a week, my wife, and smash as many fucking beers as I want. But I do it once a week, you know, like,
Everything in moderation.
Yeah, you know,
I have a sweet tooth, and my thing is like, if I did not eat sweets, what I would be like a Greek god, I think, by this point. But I'm not willing to do that. Like, it's not like I'm going to overindulge, but I want to enjoy my life.
Yeah. I really like frozen stuff. So like for me to like lose weight, but like still like curb that thing, that's where I've been using a lot of like protein shakes with like in a, you know, what do you call it, like the magic bullet kind of blender with ice, you know. So then using like 0-calorie like BCAs and things like that to like be able to get like, hey, I got 30 grams of protein and this thing is like a slushy tasting to me, you know, or, you know, things like that I can like kind of curb that sweet tooth or that like frozen thing that I want, you know, like, otherwise I'm going to smash freaking a pint of Ben and Jerry's. That's 1,500 calories, you know? So it's like, okay, well, you know, and just trying to find all those things. And in the past, I've done a lot of dieting where like I just go super Nazi and then like lose a bunch of weight real fast.
Yeah,
but
regain it.
Yeah, usually what happens over time. Yeah, over time, what usually happens is I just slowly gain it back. And so this year, I started out at the beginning of the year just really like wanting to be consistent and actually like building a lifestyle that I'll maintain. So it's been like every week is a challenge for me not to go into like Nazi mode. But it'll be like, you know, Wednesday night and my buddy's like, hey, let's go get wings and have some beers. And I'm like, no, you need to do this. Like to prove to yourself that at the end of the week, when you still lose a pound or 2 pounds, like, look, you're making progress and your life doesn't need to be like perfect for you. You know what I mean? And then I think what I'm actually learning then is like, I'm learning what the boundaries are of that. So that way, when I do get to my goal, I know like, hey, I can get away with like having beers after a ride on one day of the week, and I can like have a super gluttonous sushi night and all the beers and sake I want with my wife another night of that week. But if I push it and go float the river on the weekend and just like smash beer all day that day and eat as many Doritos as I want, then I'm gonna fucking gain weight, you know. And so like I know now like what I can get away with, you know.
Yeah. One of the interesting things when I first started just learning about nutrition many years ago was just how little we know / is the scientific consensus, and also just the lack of correlation between like I think there's this idea. I mean, obviously exercise is amazing for health and all these other has all these other benefits, but it does not help you lose weight. Like the thing that does, like you need to do is just intake fewer calories than you're burning, which is a very straightforward concept. But I think it has taken folks a very, I guess society a very long time to understand that.
Most people don't know that though. Like there's a lot of people that really don't understand nutrition like at all. Like they've just really never been introduced to it. And whether it's like they were blessed with a good metabolism, they didn't need to worry about it, or they just were raised in a family that like they never were taught that. And it wasn't even like, I mean, I went to high school, I went to college, and like it was a friend of mine that told me, hey, like it's 10 calories for every pound that you weigh, generally, is what you should be eating. And it was them that like got me in that mindset of like, oh, that's how many I should eat, and it's like, okay. And then, yeah, you got to adjust that if you're being super active or whatever. But like, I didn't even know the baseline, you know what I mean? And I think that's the case for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people don't realize like you could actually just sit on the couch every day. And as long as you eat like less calories than what your body's going to burn sitting on the couch all day, you will lose weight. Like I could lose just as much weight just watching Netflix every fucking day and only eating, I don't know, 2,000 calories a day.
And also, you'll actually lose weight, more weight or weight better doing those, is living a low intensity lifestyle, because when you are very active, you are also consuming more. You have a tendency to consume more calories.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, having an active lifestyle is healthier for all sorts of other reasons, but for purely weight loss, you can actually end up losing more weight the less active you are.
Yeah, and there are some diets that people do that where it's like they eat like a ridiculously low like caloric intake, but you're also not supposed to be like doing anything. And that just doesn't fit my lifestyle, And so that's why like I started out saying like, and I say this all the time on my channel, like people that are commenting on things like, do the diet that works for you. And for me, it's like burn 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day so I can eat 4,000 calories and get away with it. You know what I mean? And so it's like my friends are like, well, what'd you eat for dinner? And I'm like, well, yesterday I had 2 double quarter-pounder cheeseburgers that my wife made from elk that she shot, but like I ate basically 4 fucking cheeseburgers, dude. Like almost a pound of meat, but I also burned 5,000 calories that day. So it works out that way that I can still put down 3,500 calories in a day and be at a deficit,
Yeah. How often are you out there on your bike?
Probably close to like 5 to 6 days a week right now.
Nice.
And then I work out like 2 days a week. The workouts are about 45 minutes and pretty much like I do like kind of a stretching routine at the beginning, and then it's pretty much like all go and like 60-second breaks in between sets of things, and that's about it. And then I started running again recently. I really wanted to get back to doing that. It's funny, when I was in the military, I thought that I used to joke when I was getting out, when I was short, I would be like, dude, when I get out, I'm not going to run anywhere. I'm not even going to run from the cops, like I'm never going to run. And then it was like a couple of years of being out, and I was like, I feel like I could start running again. and I don't know, it's something about running, at least for me, that's like it's like this, it feels like it's like the most efficient way to burn calories. So like I say that I like to run because I'm lazy. It's like you could go out and run for like 15 minutes and burn as many calories as I would burn in like 45 minutes of cycling. It's just like,
I love trail running for that reason.
Yeah, trail running
dynamic. Yeah, I feel like it's almost the difference when you're on a trail versus the road. It's almost like the difference between like free weights and the machine at the gym, and that there's all the micro muscles.
I think the thing with trail running that in the time that I've done it is what makes it better is that you spend so much of your time thinking about where you're stepping, so that you're not like breaking your ankle or falling down, that it takes away from the part of just thinking about how much this sucks. So like when you're running on the road, like all you're thinking about is like everything in my body says stop. Like my legs hurt, my heart's like pounding, my chest, like, am I breathing enough? But when you're running on the trail, it's like, oh, jump over that log, or go around that little crack in the ground, or jump over this rock, or whatever it is. And those things keep you just kind of going.
Yeah. It's really interesting because I think about this. It's kind of like when you're riding as well. It's like you're looking ahead, but you're not looking directly down, meaning, and you look ahead, and then like however long there's a gap, but then that allows you that like your body knows where to turn the bike or like where to step, and so it's almost like it registers that in your mind before it actually does it.
It's like you're buffering. You're like watching out ahead, and it's just like everything that's actually coming to your feet or your tires, is like you've already processed that, and now you're still looking out and like buffering the next thing that's coming at you.
Totally. Yeah, I have my ankle has been shot for it was a military injury actually, and so I need to pay very close attention. And I've rolled it just countless times, and every single time that I do it, it is because it is a moment in which I am not focused on like that part of the trail or the road that is like not right in front of me, but almost right in front of me. So it didn't like download that data.
Yeah. That's whenever you started thinking about, did I take out the trash this morning?
You're like, there we go.
Yeah. Do you cycle too, or?
Yeah. I mean, I've got a stump jumper, and there's a ton of trails out in the Southern California area. So I will try and go out. I try and do it once a week, once every 2 weeks. It is just more difficult because it's not like right outside in my backyard. But there's a ton out there.
That's the downside to, especially living in most places in California. You have to drive to like go ride, so it's really a time commitment. Where running,
it's like for me, it's like at least a half day thing. Like it takes an hour, at least usually an hour to get out, and then riding for 4 to 6 hours, and then I'll come back.
Yeah, there's a lot of correlation between mountain biking and my time in the military that I personally like have, and I think that that's why I enjoy mountain biking so much. It's like, I like being out in nature. That's one thing, but I think when you go and you ride with other people, it's like you do something that sucks together, and it's like it makes you all kind of like feel like more camaraderie, like, man, we made it through that. But then it's like you also have the part that's super fun, so it's like, the high fives and the fist bumps and stuff, and it's not easy, it's not there's plenty of other sports that you could do that you could kind of get like I used to play paintball a lot, like that's super fun, but it's not really hard. It's not like you like finished a paintball match and you're like, man, I really feel accomplished. like you would maybe have your heart rate up and you'd maybe be like, you'd be worked at the end of the day, but
Yeah.
it's not like tomorrow I'm going to go do this climb that's going to put me on top of a 10,000 foot mountain. And I'm going to be standing up there like sucking wind and thinking, dude, how many people have done that this year? You know, I'm one of few, and that feels good,
Totally. It's a sense of
Yeah.
accomplishment for sure.
Yeah.
It's especially down here, and I actually haven't done too much riding up north, but it's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of elevation gain, and so you're spending the first few hours. It is a grind. It is all just uphill, and then like the way down is super fun, but it's like 30 minutes. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, like once you get up at the top, yeah, you're like, it's a Saturday morning or whatever, and this is the thing that I have accomplished.
Yeah. Definitely feels really good. So how much did your perspective change on nutrition like through building RecPak?
I mean, I certainly started to pay much more attention to it because before, I was in the military, I was in my 20s and just naturally great shape. And the only thing that I really worried about was just like, did I have a protein shake after I PT'd? But so I approached RecPak kind of like I don't know how you put it. It was like, it was almost like how you build a building. It was like there was this, or I don't know. Yeah, we'll just go with that analogy. I mean, you have like this end state in mind, and you have all of these different components that may or may not, or components and options that may or may not work. Like an ingredient that may be really nutritionally beneficial, but maybe it's just is terrible tasting, or just it's not soluble in water. And so there's this whole process of learning all of these different aspects of at least sports and endurance nutrition to put it together. And then I think over the years through that process, especially as I've gotten just naturally less active. I mean, I still am very active, but it's not my job anymore.
Right.
And so just trying to be as conscious of that, of nutrition and what I put in my body way more than I was before. I mean, RecPak is designed, like, I don't deny, like, our nutrition is for folks that are doing very intense activity outdoors. It's not for the average person just like drinking it at home. So I would never I wouldn't drink it at home. What I do my daily life is entirely different, and that's like eating as like clean and whole foods as possible. That's essentially like what I've come to, is, whereas again before, and this might be more of a maturity thing, where I was just going out and just like housing calories. These days I'm like, no, let's do the salad and the chicken and all that. So
I think it's like, maybe some of it is just getting older and your metabolism changing or whatever it is, but I mean, I've definitely come to that perspective as well. I mean, when I was younger, it'd be like I didn't really care, like what you know what I mean. It was just like,
you don't have to care.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, go to Wiener Schnitzel, eat freaking three chili cheese burgers and a chili cheese dog and a chili cheese fry, and then that sounds good. Let's go out and drink freaking 12-pack of beer too. Like, sounds like a good day to me. We'll try it again tomorrow.
Yeah, well, and I am thankful. It's the times, it's like the riding days, or it's kind of like your ski days or whatever, where you can cheat, and that's part of the fun. Is like, all right, I'm going to do this thing where I'm going to be out there and burning a couple thousand calories over the next few hours, so I can go out and just eat whatever the fuck I want. But
no, that's good though, and I think that I was joking around with somebody the other day, and they were talking about this interview with this guy that like does endurance running and like the reporter or whatever was like, why do you do these 70-mile runs or whatever? And he's like, I love cookies. And he's like, and if I do this, I can eat as many cookies as I want. And I just like cookies, and it's like, I can relate, man. I can
one
totally
guy's
relate.
motivation.
Yeah. So I think for me, like, I'm looking forward to getting to a spot where I don't need to lose weight anymore. You know what I mean? Where then I can add in more of the fun stuff. But it's definitely in eating cleaner and like, you just feel better. You just honestly feel better. And I think there's times in the past where I've told people that, but I didn't actually believe it. But it was like this, like a month or two ago. Actually, it was when I went to Sea Otter. I went to Sea Otter. My wife was with me this year. And so we got like a nice hotel, and we were, going out and eating like good meals for breakfast and dinner and stuff. And the one morning I got like the crappiest like thing that I would normally get like all the time, which was like biscuits and gravy and bacon and like sausage and all this other shit, right? Wash it down with a Bloody Mary. And I like left that restaurant and I just felt like shit, man.
Oh yeah.
Like I was like, that tasted good, but I did not feel good. Like compared to like when I like cook what I normally cook for breakfast, which is like, I don't know, eggs and whatever, and it's like, I just feel better. I just like honestly just feel better,
Yeah. A huge motivation for me is just if I don't eat well, like in the morning or afternoon, I just get really low energy in the afternoons. And when I do eat well, I can maintain my energy, and that alone certainly keeps me going. And then these days, I mean, I'm not like I was when I was 25, and I don't really drink hardly ever. But when I have special occasions or like a friend's birthday or whatever, like even having like 3 to 4 drinks or whatever, which in college, of course, I remember when I was freshman year of college and I saw the amount of drinking, and then I read like the FDA. It was like, I think it was the FDA, or they had some sort of thing of like, you are a binge drinker if you drink more than whatever 6 per week. And I'm like, Jesus, everybody else is a binge drinking alcoholic here. But so that was the norm back then. These days, if I have, I don't know, 3 drinks or something, I feel it the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. I can say that I still enjoy indulging in the beers when I get the opportunity, but I definitely don't, I'm not as like motivated to like drink too much like I was when I was younger. You know what I mean? Like there's plenty of opportunities where I can be like, yeah, I had 3 beers. That was cool. But like when I was younger, it was like, if I had 3 beers, we're drinking all the beers. Like, that was enough to get me started,
Yeah. Yeah. Same here.
But so like through the process of building like what you put in RecPak, what like did you learn in like about some of those ingredients that you like maybe didn't expect to like understand when you started out?
I think it was for me just really understanding how, like, it's not just about hitting certain, like a lot of people like are so focused on protein content, and rightfully so, but it was more, and maybe that was with my imperfect building analogy, it was kind of thinking about this very holistically, and how do we choose the right ratios of macronutrients, with each, how does each ingredient, which provides not its own nutritional profile as well as like the other properties, so what does the mouth feel, how does it blend together in water, how does all that come together into a single formulation to provide like this holistic nutrition. That was like the thing that was, I found the most interesting and challenging to work
Yeah.
on.
How'd you come up with the nutritionist that you use?
Man, it's I think we talked about before, just like the number of people that you have to um sort of filter and work with, and some are
Yeah.
going to work and others are not. Probably chances are they're not going to work. So I didn't know anything, so I was literally just reaching out. I would Google like sports nutrition for X activity or whatever, and then read
Uh-huh.
through some articles, and then see if I could find that person on LinkedIn. And it was just that very organic process.
Wow. So you were like just in the trenches, just trying to like figure it out.
You got to be going, because the alternative is there are development houses that you can go and say, here's $20,000, make
Right.
this formulation. And maybe in retrospect, that actually would have been a lot easier. And I would have not had to deal with like the years of heartache and stress. But
Yeah.
I learned a hell of a lot more by just going the hard route and just reaching out to people individually. And just
So did you start out like kind of mixing stuff up yourself? Like you would go,
oh
get like,
yeah, I made just terrible decisions around that. Like originally we had chia seed in RecPak, which if you know anything, just it creates like this almost a goop essentially. And so that was it was just terrible tasting. Never mind the chia seed, but there were so many iterations of I was just drinking this disgusting, I called it sludge water,
uh-huh.
until we finally just started really refining it.
So you were just like in there like the Mad Hatter, just dumping stuff in there and
I
like, let's
download
try this.
I bought off of Amazon. There's those platypus splatters that are kind of like our packaging, what we have today, but it's meant to be for water,
Yeah.
reusable. And I would just fill the powder in there, and like you'd have to shake it up and wait, I don't know, 10 minutes or something. And it was still super clumpy. And yeah, it was a science project for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that clumping thing whenever I made it, but it's like, yeah, I mean, if I'm making protein in a cup, if you don't have that like little blender ball in there, it's like virtually impossible not to get it to clump,
Yeah.
So to come up with a formulation that you could just put in this bag and just shake the shit out of it and it works.
Yeah, and there's still maybe a little bit, especially if you didn't let it settle. But we have like all the ingredients were in the production process was selected so that we really made it as soluble in water and reduced the clumping. But I mean, I've never.
Is it just like grinding it down to be like more of a dust, or is it like actually like
it is blending it together in a way so that you make it as uniform as possible. Yeah.
It's really interesting. It's like definitely not like there's so many things in a product like this that as a consumer you don't think about. You're like, yeah, I put water in there, I shook it up and I drank it, and it's like literally years of work for you.
I mean, yeah, and that's the thing that I think when people look at a product, to your point, they don't realize that I've got like this tape thing here, like this tape, Scotch tape. And they don't realize that there's an entire team that handles every single part of this. I mean, that's very intuitive. Like you could probably imagine all the different teams that work on that. But then when you think of a small company and they're designing this new Scotch tape, chances are like that instead of an entire team, it's just like one person and they have to think about all these different things. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I bought a 3D printer like a year or two ago, and that just really made me realize like how much goes into making something. So like there's been a lot of things that I've created that didn't exist before I made them, you know what I mean? But like I had to learn how to use CAD, like what you were saying, like, and I had to like realize that it's like you come up with this idea and you draw it and you think everything's perfect, and then you print it and it's not. And then you do it again and again. And next thing you know, you have 40 of them sitting there that you've made. And every time you found another problem, every time you made one, So it's definitely, it makes you realize like, oh, wow, like something so simple can actually like sometimes like still be like 4 or 5 iterations for me to make something that's like, I don't know, a freaking washer or something. You know what I mean? It's like something where like, I'm not picking a great idea, but it's like there's been some things where I'm like, this is going to be super easy. I'm gonna sit down on the computer. It's gonna take me 10 minutes. I'm gonna be done. And then like 2 hours later, I'm like, and now I'm done.
Yeah, and sometimes it's the simplest things are the most difficult. Oftentimes it's like that. What are you 3D printing?
Oh man, all kinds of things. Like I have these lights that are hanging right now that they're like,
oh, cool.
Yeah. So those lights, like they have like basically rails that I built out of EMT. You could go online and buy something that's modular like that for like $600, or you can make it yourself, So I like get some EMT and I like get it strapped up there. But then I need something that's going to like roll across that bar and then also hold this light. So then that's like something that I fabricated, was like making this mount that goes up there. But I have things like on my pump for my mountain bike, like the cap didn't protect the head of the pump well enough so that it would roll around and scratch the paint. So I like made a different cap for it that's made out of like rubber that
super cool.
Scratch my paint, But and some of it's stupid shit. It's like, oh, I need a let's see what I got here. Like this is a little ring camera here.
Mm-hmm.
I made a baseball hat for it because I felt like that was a good use of my time. So, some of it's stupid shit like that, or like the camera that's in front of me. I needed a mount for the tripod to put the camera right where I wanted it, and I couldn't buy anything. So it was like, oh, I can make the measurements to print this thing that's 3 inches tall to make this sit exactly where I want it to be. Or I printed knobs for my oven. My wife didn't like the knobs that we had. They were like getting all messed up, and they were like $300 to get new ones. And I was like, I think I could print those. And I was going to paint them and like make them all pretty. And then while I was like prototyping, she's like, actually like them just the way they are. And I was like,
yeah, like a matte black.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, this is actually fine. I'm like, sweet, So originally when I bought it, I wanted to build a product. I wanted to make a like a chesty kind of GoPro mount that was just magnetic, so that you could wear like the strappy part under your shirt, and then it would just like magnetically stick to your chest instead of like wearing the GoPro brawl, is what I call it. And that was the whole reason I bought the thing, and I started making that product, and I have about one of the 900 versions over there that I was working on. But somewhere along the line, I just started, once I learned how to use Autodesk and like create things, it really just changed my whole outlook on life. Because instead of looking at things and being like, oh, where can I buy this thing that I need? I look at problems as like, oh, can I solve this by creating something?
Oh, I love that. That's a great ethos.
Yeah, it's been amazing, because it's like, it also like scratches this creative itch that I have, So it's like, I have one of those like tool chests, that people buy at Harbor Freight or Home Depot. It's got like big metal box, all the drawers in it. And I have one of those in my office that I got a bunch of like camera shit in and whatever crap I got in there, right? And I wanted a power strip on there so I could plug all these things in that I'm going to do on top of it, right? And I could have just like used some metal self-tapping screws and just screwed it into the back, but I didn't want to do that. I was like, I wanted it to be magnetic. So I like printed these mounts for the power strip so I can magnetically put it on the back of the cart, you know, and you know, it's just something that was like, it fixed a problem that I had, but it also like was really fun to like invent something. And then some of those things you can put online and other people are like, oh, thanks for that. I needed that too, you know?
Yeah. Well, if you ever want to productize any of them, I have been through the ringer, so I'm always happy to you know, lend a helping ear.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like there's still a market for that chesty that I was making. Maybe one of these days, maybe this winter when it starts raining again, I got nothing else better to do, I'll work on it again. But
totally.
We're around in the 2-hour mark, man. I really appreciate you sitting down and chatting with me and all of the Biker Bar podcast followers out there. Do you like to watch YouTube?
I sure do.
Yeah. I always like to ask people at the end of the show what YouTube channels they like to watch, because sometimes there's some fun ones out there.
So I have, YouTube is actually my guilty pleasure because I don't really watch TV, but what I'll do at the end of the evening to unwind is I will just go and I'll watch, it generally falls within the following categories. It's like outdoor / sports, like wild sports videos, clips of classic movies, just like random. I'll just be like, oh, this, you know, this is like the gladiator sequence or or just like, you know, SNL or something. And that's just like my way of turning my brain off, but also just kind of learning things. I will actually say there is, if you ever wanted to learn just about the mysteries of the universe, there is a great channel. It's called like Kurzgesagt. It's a weird, it's like a, I don't know, a German name or something. And they break down these wild mysteries of the universe, like you know, the scientific reason or mathematical reasoning behind, does alien life exist, and they'll turn it into this really compelling cartoon. So yeah, it's highly recommend that for both entertainment.
How's it pronounced again?
Here, let me see. It's it is KURZGESAGT.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, they've got like 20 million plus subscribers. So if you sort of like hand jam that in there, I think the algorithm will take you there. But it is actually, look at that. Look at they have one on exercise. The workout.
Yeah, it sounds right up my alley. I really like that kind of stuff.
Oh, dude, you cogot to get lost in this channel. It is awesome.
Yeah, really. It's definitely one of those ones where you start out where you're like, I'm going to watch this thing. And then you're like, what happened to the last 2 hours?
But at least you're a bit more informed, you know? Just sitting there watching, I don't know, reality TV.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I said earlier, man, I really appreciate you sitting down and talking about your journey, and I really enjoyed your product a lot, and hopefully you guys continue to keep killing it and getting bigger. And those of you out there that have listened to this entire podcast and you're thinking about trying out the product, you can go over to the RecPak website, and Deed actually set us up with a coupon code. So for 30% off, use code B1KER and save some money and try it out. You'll be surprised. Honestly, I was definitely surprised by what I tasted compared to what I expected it to taste like. So thanks again, Deed. I really appreciate it. And all of you out there, if none of this matters to you at all and you just want to take one thing from this, remember, it only takes a bike to be a biker. Get out and be one.